Hello and welcome to Dharma reading. Today's Golden Deer Sangha Dharma reading. We're reading from Swami Vishnu Devananda's The Complete Illustrated Guide to Yoga. I recommend anybody interested in yoga purchase or acquire rightfully the Complete Illustrated Book of Yoga by Swami Vishnu Devananda. Chapter 9, Astral Body, the Mystery of Mind and Extrasensory Perception. So this chapter talks about the mind. We're talking today about the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind rests deeper, the deeper energy states, the energy centers within the body, the Muladhara chakra, the red chakra, the root chakra, some people, or base chakra. I prefer root, better term. And the Muladhara chakra, probably the best term, the original word. But the subconscious is what, when we are aware of absolutely everything, when we are totally enlightened, then our subconscious is bubbling, rising up all the way, rising up all the way into our conscience, and we are cognizing the entire world 100% fully. Such is what the enlightened, what it means being an enlightening being. Now, when we are unenlightened, or working at being enlightening ourselves and others, then we're in the state where we are trying and finding our areas of ignorance and shining the light, shining the light on our areas of ignorance. And so one of the ways is by understanding the subconscious, understanding things in terms of the subconscious, the alaya, the storehouse, alaya, and how things in the store consciousness or conscious storehouse arise and surface. So now we read some of Swami Vishnu's description about the mind states, or the mind's parts and the subconscious. Astral Body, the Mystery of Mind and Extrasensory Perception, Chapter 9. Skipping around a little bit, so if you are following along, then skipping some. One of the things that has puzzled scientific investigators is the persistent recurrence of stories relating to extrasensory perception. Such stories continue to come to light without proper explanation. There is one where a woman dreamed her son was killed in battle. She awoke, looked at the clock, it was 2 a.m. The next day, a telegram arrived stating that her son had been killed at 2 a.m. Another woman dreamed she was visited by her son who said, "I'm leaving this world and going to a better place, and I won't be able to see you." She received a message the following day stating that her son had left the physical world. In trying to interpret these everyday examples, a difficulty arises. The majority of mankind believes only in what their senses perceive. Such persons accept as unquestionable anything that their senses convey to them. They fail to understand that their senses, at best, are imperfect instruments, and that the mind is constantly employed in correcting the mistaken reports of the senses. So what Swami Vishnu is saying here is, first, there are extrasensory perception which occurs, such as the woman waking up, envisioning her son, when the son, and also the woman visiting the son visiting the woman and saying, a son visiting the mother and saying, "I am leaving this world, I'm continuing on to the next world." There is also astral projection, which means projecting one's body from one location via the memory of a different location at a different location. And also dream or astral travel, or dream travel, which is a little bit different because the dream world is sometimes different than the waking world. The waking world we think of as kind of a static thing, or I think many people are thinking of the waking world as a static thing. But really the reality is we're experiencing things through our senses, through our indriyas, our sense organs. The sense organs are actually formed from our ignorance at desiring the very essential experiences we experience throughout life, whereas pratyahara means withdrawing from the senses and following the precepts, abstaining from killing and violence, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, intoxicants, and the extended precepts if you follow them, and then understanding the world as a projection from one's desires and ignorance, and shining the light on the ignorance, and thus bringing the subconscious to the fore, thus being without subconscious, facing all one's fears and being a loving being in the world. And also, when practicing deeply in meditation, being a loving being in the transcendent states, or the states which transcend the world or worldly life. So, they fail to understand that their senses are at best, are imperfect instruments, and that the mind is constantly employed in correcting the mistaken reports of the senses. Modern scientific thinking has reached a stage where physicists have been forced to abandon the ordinary world of our experience, the so-called world of sense perceptions. They have crossed the border that divides physics from metaphysics. The theory of Eastern philosophy, involving the relationship between observer and reality, is now utilized by modern physicists. In Vedanta philosophy, the world is described as unreal from the absolute point of view. It has no independent reality without the senses and mind of the observer, and hence is true only in relative terms. And the knowledge that we gain through these various senses varies according to the nature of the instrument used to observe the object. Our senses delude us by bringing knowledge that changes often. We do not have a universal sense that will be a common machine to weigh the reality of the observer. Machine meaning computer. So there's no computer which exists which weighs or judges the reality of the observer, independent of some human or other entity creating the thing. Even if there are some sort of technological intelligence which has consciousness itself, such a thing is not unbiased, because such an object would require formation, and formation requires the bias of continuing existence. Formation also requires the birthing of whatever the technological intelligence, and the cessation of the technological intelligence also require the technological intelligence struggle continuing existing. Otherwise, technological intelligence ceases surviving past the ideational stages. So, a stick plunged into the water appears broken, though in reality it is not so. So what happens? You're at the water level, you poke a stick into the water, you look at the water from above, and you see that the stick is actually off center, off kilter. So it's here, it's cut off, and it looks like the handle is this way, and then the lower part is this way when you look at the water, right? So there are reasons scientifically, but we're also we're using the situation as a metaphor about the illusion of the water. So is the stick really broken and in two locations when put into the water? Literally by elements, yes, air and water, but figuratively the figure remains the same. Sweet and bitter, hot and cold, sun and earth, the whole objective universe of matter and energy does not exist independent of the mind and senses. Even time and space are nothing but the power of the mind. That is think of how vast a statement that is. Time and space are nothing but the power of the mind. Notice he doesn't say, or notice he's without saying your mind, or my mind, or the Buddha's mind, or Swami Vishnu's mind, or Swami Shivananda's mind, which is off screen right now. But in here, Swami Shivananda is here. And so the mind, the collective consciousness, the total sum of the consciousness, human consciousness, and also any other consciousness which is at the periphery from the human consciousness, which humans are able to interacting with ethically. So there is no mind. Or rather, there is nothing to there's nothing which exists independent of the mind and senses. The whole objective universe of matter and energy does not exist independent of the mind and senses. Even time and space are nothing but the power of the mind. There is nothing to limit man in time and space if there is no mind. So when you have, the statement could be interpreted in two ways. One, if you're acting with no mind, so if you're completely unbiased, you're acting within an intuitional state of mind, observing your acting and your being, your speaking, as something which is merely a conduit, which you're receiving, rather than an intentional will formation. I desire this, or I desire this, or I desire that, or that, just or this or this. Then then no mind, just the silent observer phase, right? So when the silent observer phase, which respects our people, respecting our mother and respecting our father inherently, both our blood mother and father, and also the archetypes we experience throughout the world, which are kind of proxies for our mother and father, right? The archetypal images, or our parents' persons. So there is nothing to limit man in time and space if there is no mind. So if not the silent witness state, then if there's no mind, but the no mind is kind of a no intelligence, then then people receive limits, right? You're not thinking correctly. You're not minding the situation, not being mindful. So how we phrase no, or what we're thinking of when we're thinking of no mind, is kind of how we need to react upon the situation. If no mind, but no mind, but unconscious or lacking intelligence, then limit. If no mind and silent witness observer conscious, then no limits. Yeah. All limitations and barriers disappear with the disappearance of the mind. So we continue, we'll skip some, now we talk about the subconscious. So the subconscious is, you can see here, we have some images. Oh, too bright. Okay, so here we have a person. We have the association region here at the back of the brain. Then at the, let's see if I tilted. Association at the back of the brain, below the very lower back of the brain, vision. Then 3 is the touch receptive, father, mother, son, nurturing, caring. 4, language formation. 1, association. 2 motor, so motor skills, the second closest to the front, and 1 also association. So many areas which are belonging with association, and then the diagram here, the higher mind, intuition, superconsciousness, consciousness or conscious mind, the seat of intellect or bodhi, and then the subconscious mind, the seat of instinct, alaya. Now the alaya also exists within the chakras and the energy centers within the body, including the Muladhara chakra, which is where we think of as the soar consciousness, or the alaya. And I believe the pralaya is the kind of the where one's secret unravels and one experiences time, if I remember correctly. But I don't take my word for it. Look up and see what the line is. In terms of our Shris, who teach us the asanas and their goodness. So the subconscious plane of the mind. At first sight, it would seem that the conscious part of man's mind does most of the work, but a little reflection will show that conscious reasoning of the mind is only a part of its function. In a broad sense, the mind of man functions on 3 planes of effort: subconscious, conscious, and superconscious, each plane gradually shading into the planes on either side of it, the one next higher and one next lower, like the colors in a rainbow. Man shares the subconscious plane of the mind in common with lower animals. It is the first stage of mental development in the scale of evolution. The first dawn of the instinctive mind can be traced even in the mineral kingdom. Then, in the plant kingdom, it grows more distinct and higher in the scale. Again, in the animal world, there is an increasing manifestation of the automatic mind from the almost plant-like intelligence of the lowest forms until we reach a degree almost equal to the lowest form of human being. Then, among men, we see it shading gradually into the intellect, the middle principle of the mind. But even the very highly evolved men of today use the subconscious mind and, in varying degrees, are used by it, which means we need to protect ourselves, because people's subconsciouses are interacting, and when the subconsciouses interact, we need to make sure that whatever information we are receiving from other people, whether they are intentionally programming us or unintentionally programming us psychologically in the subconscious, we are protecting ourselves from unwholesomeness, right? So, but even the very highly evolved men of today use the subconscious mind, and in varying degrees are used by it. In fact, we cannot exist without this part of the mind. Though we cannot exist without it, we must learn to use and guide it intelligently. Every one of us has reached the present stage of development after a long journey through 840,000 bodies of various kingdoms, such as mineral, plant, and animal. Yet it is only sunrise, and the full day is far away. Intellect, the second phase of the mind, which civilized man uses at present, has unfolded only to a small degree. For many, the intellect unfolding is only the beginning. If we analyze, we can see that many are little better than animals, their minds functioning almost on the instinctive plane, though it is shaded by the incoming rays of intellect. So we talk some about the instinctive part of the mind, the animal part of the mind. See if we can return to the subconscious. Here we go. The instinctive functions such as making a nest, migrating before the approaching winter, hibernation from the snow, nursing the young are all functions of the subconscious mind, which are essential for the animal's existence, including human animals, until the development of the intellect. Okay, so now we have our hibernating and nursing young happen inside, right? And rather than nesting, we're housing. Rather than migrating, we stay in the same place because we have technology, the warmth, right? Another function of the subconscious mind is to do things automatically that we have learned through the intellect. When we learn things by heart, we have really mastered them on the intellectual plane and then pass them on to the subconscious plane by meditation. This process is a higher manifestation of the subconscious mind and is due to contact and blending with the developing intellect. Much of our daily work is done automatically, such as walking, painting, sewing, driving, etc. If not, the intellect would tire if it had these everyday tasks to perform consciously or intellectually. So it's important when we talk about we accomplish the things automatically, and the mind would tire if we're worrying about the things. But if we're mindful about the things and we slow down a little bit in practice, it's also good. So moving away from rajas, walking mindfully, painting mindfully, sewing mindfully, and driving mindfully, but without allowing the intellect clouding the mind too much, without worry, and without stress. The subconscious mind is also a habit mind, or rather an obedient servant, as it cannot reason. It often has to be guided by the intellect of the individual or of some other person. Any idea from the intellect consciously or unconsciously comes to it and is carried out faithfully to the very letter. So what are some of the parts of the subconscious mind, or some functions? The imagination, the memory, our desires and how we are connecting, and how our chi, or our energy, enables us, our desire, our drive, our motive. Old notions and tensions lying subconsciously can be corrected and removed through better instructions by the intellect of the individual or of someone else. It is amazing to know how helpful the subconscious mind is. For example, when we have to catch a plane early in the morning, all we have to do is to suggest to the subconscious mind to wake us at a certain time, and it does. So can you imagine some Swami is contacting you, hey, catch the plane, it's time to visit the time to visit the Sivananda Ashram. How cool. The subconscious mind does not carry out only good instructions from the intellect, but also wrong instructions. So unnecessary fears, anxieties, and worries created during our daily activities are taken on by the subconscious mind and later on projected to the conscious mind. A shock or a fear in childhood will torment a person even when he is old, unless he is helped by counter-suggestions. So you bring awareness to your fears, right? So what Swamiji is saying here is that we have in our subconscious, we have both good influences and ways in which our habit energies, which we're programming ourselves, and the way we develop a pattern, and the way others interact with us, the way others develop our pattern, whether they're good patterns or whether they're bad patterns, and we want to not push them away, but say, no, thank you. And so examining the contents of the mind and what occurs to one's mind, it's also a part of meditation, or dhyana. So during the meditative process, things arise within the mind, then we return to the breath. Things arise, we return to the breath. The more we return to the breath, the more we develop our meditation and the less the interruptions happen, eventually meditation progresses and deepens, which is a good practice. Now, in the subconscious mind, or plain lie all the knowledge and impressions received from various sources, not only from this life but from previous incarnations. It is something like a storehouse, having everything known and unknown, which it has received through hereditary and various other sources that it has unfolded within itself. So, so all the sources we experience and our habits are a part of our life or exist within our subconsciouses. So, for example, if we have a technology device we use, whether a TV, I've seen from TV and radio. I love chanting, so chanting's my music. But I have a tablet, and my tablet I communicate with people. I write sometimes and use various applications, or utilize various applications rather, and so I start using some of the emoticons in my tablet, and I'm using some of these emoticons which are within me, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, oh, some of these things which I'm looking at are really connecting to my subconscious, and the way these things are arranged on the page and on the various screens which give me the options for the emoticons seem connecting to me with my life very closely. And this is where the tricky part of the subconscious and the spiritual development occur, because what's happening from with the body and the mind is there's the synapses in the mind. If we're thinking about things from a scientific perspective, the synapses in the mind, the electricity, is registering with the generative energy lower towards the Muladhara chakra and the desire mind, which bring the object, the Kindle, to us, or the Kindle, any object, no brand names, right? So looking at the tablet, then as I'm looking at the tablet and the information is going into my eyes and storing in my consciousness as I desire using the tablet, I'm actually being programmed, and I'm scrolling through the screens, and the images are persistent from unless there's an update, right, from day to day. So those images are just drilling into my mind, right? Not drilling, but entering into my mind, and I protect myself from them, so they're without hurting me, I'm without hurting them, but I acknowledge them, and they're kind of storing in my subconscious, and then I notice, how am I relating to these images? Now I'm thinking the images seem really relating to me on a personal level, and on the personal level, it seems like almost like there are companies which when you're using the tablet, they extract the information, they analyze the information, they work with other companies, and then they give you the information back which you desire, right? Which from a perspective of releasing attachment is counterproductive, because unless the advertisements are about spiritual practice, religious practice, then our attachment about worldly life is increasing, covering up all our higher mind, and we're continually giving us information operating at a lower level than what we're conscious of. So the are the emoticons arranged? Now this is again the difficult part is, if I see something which relates to me, or if you see something which relates to you, and it seems almost like the content is so specific to you, the content could either be intentionally given to you because people are trying to keep you desiring using the product. So that's you're acknowledging people are giving you what you want, trying at keeping so people are giving you what you want, trying at keeping you attached to the tablet. Or are people actually programming you and delivering content which limits your perception or your reality? If they're limiting your perception or your reality, are they conscious of it, or am I just experiencing a reflection of these people's limits, giving as they have already processed my data, giving the data to these people, and then displaying the emoticons I like seeing on my screen, or I love seeing on my screen. So if there's hopefully nowhere out there are there any intentionally people which are intentionally suppressing me or harming me, right? But and even if there are, we are sure those people have some goodness in them. Everybody has some goodness, some love. Otherwise, there's no life. You're not. There's no such. All beings have some love and some goodness. Otherwise, the beings are nothing. There's nothing to animate the being. There is nothing to keep the being alive, because evil causes death and hatred also causes death. So live. It's important that we try and connect with the elements within the people and think of every possibility other than they have negative intentions, and until we find out, oh, they have admitted, they confess their intentions are actually negative. But hopefully not. Hopefully the data are good, right? The data we're receiving back from people, the senses we're receiving back people, the mind. As we talk about with Sumiji, we talk about the mind, which is my mind, the data provider's mind, and the analysts and advertisers and other people which develop the content's mind also. So now in the collective conscious mind, in the zeitgeist, the mind, or manas, in Sanskrit we call the mind manas. So now in manas we have information which we're receiving into the alaya, or the store consciousness, via the energy channels in the body, Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna, and then existing at the root chakra, which we're seeing every day. And now how are such images affecting us? Then we go out into the world, we see things which relate to the various images. Oh, a star. Twinkling star. Ah, sun. So then we're relating the things which are in our consciousness to things which are in our world, even without the technology. But the technology, all things have an impact on us. And so as you're going about your day, about your world, and about your life, it's important you keep the question when you're using technology. And technology actually includes anything from a pair of chopsticks to a device like you're viewing me on, or unless you're telepathic and tuning in. How cool would that be? Then are the impacts good? Are the impacts bad? And if the impacts are bad or unwholesome, how am I utilizing my device or filtering the content or choosing a new device which has more wholesome content? If the effects are good and wholesome, then excellent, good. Maybe you even want to send a thank you letter and say, thank you, I appreciate you giving me content which helps me connect with my spiritual life and keep my life wholesome. If the content's unwholesome, hey, you could send an email to the people which are working with your technology and say, hey, I noticed some of these things. I'm a Raja Yogi. I'm into psychology, and I want to suggest that some things change. And there are so the question is, how are the technologies I'm using aligning with my religious life, and how am I ensuring my technology, rather than controlling me, I am controlling the technology, rather than the technology's creators controlling me. So I think at some point it's extremely important to turn off all, like the Jewish tradition, Sundays, you see everybody turns off the electricity. Sometimes the Buddhist monasteries, they purposefully turn off the electricity. Why? To save the electricity. To turn off the technology means to go back to our older periods of time, and also developing gratitude about what life is like without technology. So we're more grateful about the people which develop our cameras and our screen containers and the glass screen and the various circuitry inside, the memory chips, and or the memory chips. I don't know where your memory chip is, or wherever you're putting your memory chip. Right? Organic technology. Look, it's organic technology. So yeah, how are we ensuring our technology's effects on us are encouraging our spiritual life and our spiritual practice? The more you practice, eventually you'll find at some period you need to let go of the technology and practice with only your organic technology, which is a contradiction right now because I'm on a video, but otherwise very important disconnecting from technology at times. I have so I posted some of my video about my discoveries with the Kindle. Sorry, no brand names. You see, there's Kindle, iPad. What else are there? Kindle, iPad. There's I don't know. There's a Microsoft brand. What do they have? Surface or something like that. There's a Samsung. Other things. So there are a bunch of brand names rather than trying to selling something to you. I'm just giving you information. Okay. But I post some of my information about the various things my analysis, my subconscious analysis, to kind of give you an idea about just for the sake of sharing, and then giving you an opportunity, if you would like, send me some of your images. So if you have a PDA and emoticons, take some screenshots, an index of all the various emoticons, or just send an email. If you look at my website, or the website rather, there's no I, me, mine, right? Part of the Dhamma, no I, me, mine. So you look at the Golden Deer website, find the email, send me your emoticons. Just go type them all and then send. Or screenshots work too. Either way, and even your kitten, your cat emoticons. This is Satyavatrananda, True Vow Bliss. She's one of the nicest cats ever. And actually a couple kittens. I'll show the kittens just to be nice. Hopefully they're not too ornery. It's your reward if you watch the whole video. You get to see the kittens. So here we have one of the kittens. Very bright light. I'm sorry, kitty. And the other kitten. And mom loves her kittens. She's trying to get up to. You want to be in the picture too? There, like that. Now I'm the Dharma cat guy, right? Okay. And in defense of the cat and the kittens, the cat sometimes practices yoga with me and is extremely nice, cuddly, and friendly, and the kittens are quiet 99.99% of the time. So in their defense, I'm kind of interrupting their sleeping to display them on screen. And here's Satyanandi, or Satyavatranandi, approaching back again. Yeah, hi. So we going back to the technology aspect. How are our technologies affecting our lives? What kind of technologies are the technologies narrowing our vision or affecting us in ways which require us suffering in some way? And if so, how are we able accessing the very deepest, the low parts of the subconscious, bringing the light of awareness at the very deepest parts of the subconscious, and removing the various things which cause us suffering and diminish our health. So we take a look at the video. The video will be entitled about the Amatikans. The video will be entitled Subconscious and Amatikans. And send me your. I'm interested. My interests are in seeing what kind of Amatikans you have too, and that's from a psychological perspective. See, oh, does everybody has the same Amatikans? If so, then I'm looking at my phone. I'm looking at the collective consciousness. If everybody has different Amatikans, then what am I learning? I'm learning. I have. We are each receiving custom content, and how are the custom contents affecting my subconscious, your subconscious, and what am I? If I see something in yours which I don't have in mine, or if I see something from your phone, I am mine. I mean mine, right? If I see something with this tablet, then what is which exists not at the device you currently utilize, or if the device you currently utilize has not something which is not on this, what are we lacking? Or maybe we actually the lack is a wholesome lack. So wholesome lack. Do send me your information, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and enjoy your technology mindfully, making sure you're protecting yourself in the subconscious. Okay, so now we close.